We are here. Week 1 is finally upon us. It's been a long off season, but Thursday night kicks off the season with the Ravens traveling to Kansas City. And the last time these two teams played each other, it was a close one in the AFC Championship game. Chiefs are favored by 3 for this one, and if the Ravens are to win, they need to obviously contain Mahomes and Chiefs offense, which is not an easy thing to ask you to do, which is why you can do it by controlling the time of possession. Massively control time of possession. And if you're going to do that, you need to score on every opportunity you have. Those are what I think the Ravens need to do for the Chiefs. They did a good job at this in the championship game. They need to force mistakes, force turnovers, just find a way to get Baltimore behind the sticks. If they can contain Lamar Jackson, it can go a long way in doing it, not because he's a bad passer, but because I do not trust Baltimore's receiving room. And then the final thing for the Chiefs is they need to make sure their receiving room is improved from last year and you can actually catch passes. You can't only rely on Travis Kelce and Isaiah Pacheco. It's going to be a fun game in Arrowhead to begin the season. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning week 1. The second game of the week comes from Sao Paulo, Brazil, as the Green Bay Packers take on the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles are favored by 2.5, and this should be a really good game. I am high on both of these teams. I feel like this is one that will come down to the wire. And the Packers, they need to throw off the timing. They need to establish momentum early on offense, and they need to force the mistakes, take advantage of those mistakes. The Eagles, they need to throw off the timing of the Packers' Shanahan-style offense with Matt LaFleur. They need to set the tone early on defense. That's kind of one of the more question marks of that team with new defensive coordinator Vic Fangio. So I like the Eagles' chances. I have the Eagles winning. I think they will throw off the timing well. They did it against Miami last year. And for as much as I love the Packers' receiving room, they don't have nearly the same type of talent that Miami's receiving room has with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. We'll get to that. But yeah, I like the Eagles to win this one from Brazil. To begin the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, the New England Patriots travel to Cincinnati to play the Bengals. The Bengals are 8-point favorites in this game, and they are the main ones to talk about. This is the perfect game for them to start off the season hot with a win and to avoid that slow start to the season. They simply need to take advantage of New England's weak offensive line, limit the mistakes, and play a disciplined style of football. And when the deep shots are there, just take it. You have Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with Joe Burrow slinging the rock. Don't be afraid to launch one up when New England's only real secondary player is Christian Gonzalez. For New England, there's not much to really talk about when it comes to key player additions. I mean, yeah, they drafted Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, but Drake May is going to be benched for week 1. He's not going to be the starter at least. He will probably play at some point this season. And for New England, if they're going to pull off this upset, they need to simply control time of possession, make sure Cincy does not touch the ball at all, basically. Limit your mistakes and force mistakes for Cincy and then take advantage of those mistakes Cincy makes. I just don't see all of that happening for New England. I do think this is going to be a tough game for New England to keep close. So yeah, give me Cincinnati to win in week 1. The Arizona Cardinals travel to Buffalo to play the Bills in week 1, with the Bills being favored by 6. This game is probably a lot more interesting to me than it has any right to be, but I feel like it could be a relatively close game. Arizona needs to force turnovers and mistakes while limiting their own, contain Josh Allen, and score on every possession they possibly can. None of those are necessarily easy things to ask of Arizona to do, but if Kyle Murray can get going with Marvin Harrison Jr., it should be an interesting offensive performance to say the least. For Buffalo, they need to establish James Cook and the ground game. That's what they did in the second half of last season, and that's a big reason as to why they ended up winning the division last season. I'm not saying to completely limit Josh Allen. No, let him cook because that is what has helped Buffalo in the past. But he needs to limit the turnovers. He can do that. I like their chances. Plus, if Buffalo can contain Kyler Murray and force him to rely on throwing it to Marvin Harrison Jr. and giving the ball to James Conner. Buffalo is favored by 6. I like them to win. But that point spread, I'm definitely keeping an eye on for sure. The next game is the Houston Texans as 2.5-point favorites traveling to the Indianapolis Colts for a little divisional clash. The Texans added a lot of nice weapons to their offense with Joe Mixon and Stephon Diggs, and that should help them out because it can allow them to be unpredictable on offense. They have like 7 guys that can all get the football, The Colts really don't know where the ball is going to be going at any given play. And it's going to be tough to have to guard Diggs, Dell, Collins, Schultz, and Mixon all at once. So there's that aspect for the Texans to win. If they can also just stop the run from being established, it can help them out a lot. Whether that is stopping Jonathan Taylor when he gets the ball or containing Anthony Richardson. For the Colts, they really are hoping that Anthony Richardson is healthy for a full season and is up to the level that we saw of him last year. And that begins with keeping him upright. Whether that's the O-line protecting really well or Anthony Richardson sliding and getting down or getting out of bounds. Really, it's going to come down to both teams' defenses, and I have more faith in the Houston Texans, so I'm going to take them to win this one. Even with Jacksonville being in North Florida, traveling to a heat index of 100-degree Miami Gardens to play the fastest team in the league is not a card anyone wants to pull. The Dolphins are favored by 3.5 in this one, and there is a lot of speed for Jacksonville to keep up with. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, and Jalen Wright will all take advantage of even the slightest of missteps. Jacksonville needs to try to keep these guys off the field by controlling time of possession and establishing the run, or just throwing off the timing of the offense when it is on the field. Miami needs to keep Tua upright as they're a much better offense when he is on the field than off. And they need to establish a tone on defense. Getting a stop or two early on or even a turnover will go a long way in helping out the defense's confidence not only for this game, but the entire season. This should be a good one even with 100-degree temperatures being a factor and all. And either way, I have the Miami Dolphins pulling up the Week 1 victory. The Windy City finally gets his look at Caleb Williams when the Tennessee Titans come to town to play the Chicago Bears. The Bears are favored by 4 points in this game, and that feels like a lot to me. Not to say that I feel like the Bears are going to be too bad this year, but I feel like the Titans are being slept on quite a bit. They added an entirely new receiving room with Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd being added to it, on top of DeAndre Hopkins. Will Levis is going to take another step, and their new head coach, Brian Callahan, is going to get the ground game looking better than ever, I believe. For the Titans to win this one, it does go back to having to establish the run and making things difficult on Caleb Williams. Throw some disguised coverages at him. Throw some exotic blitzes at him. He's only seen preseason football at the moment and a Pac-12 coach defensive slate. If they can truly confuse him and make him see things that are not actually there, they're going to have an easier time on defense with Justin Simmons leading the way on the front seven. For Chicago, they need to make things simple for Caleb Williams. Get him into a momentum and a groove early through quick passes and easy decision-making reads. Meanwhile, their defense needs to apply pressure to Will Levis and throw off their rhythm. Tennessee has a lot of weapons on this offense that does not get talked about a lot, and the only reason is because Houston and Indianapolis are also really good teams with quite a few weapons. I like Tennessee to win this game. I have them winning it, not because I feel like either of these teams are worse than the other, but also because this is going to come down to coaching in the end. And I trust Brian Callahan more than I do Matt Eberflus. So yeah, give me Tennessee to spoil the opening day for Caleb Williams. MetLife Stadium is getting a northern invasion as the Minnesota Vikings travel to play the New York Giants. The Vikings are favored by 1 point in this one, and that seems about right. Minnesota, keep it simple for Sam Darnold and get the ball to Justin Jefferson and Aaron Jones' hands. Let the playmakers make the plays. That simple, and just try to force dumb mistakes from Daniel Jones. We all know he has it in him to do it. So apply pressure, disguise looks, or do something to try to get him to make a mistake. For the Giants, it is relatively simple. Make sure that Daniel Jones does not make those mistakes. Keep the game simple. Keep him upright and give him a good pocket. And win the field position battle. That's what this game is going to come down to, is whose defense can end up setting up the offense in the best situation. For that, I have more faith in the New York Giants than I do the Minnesota Vikings, so give me the Giants to win this one. The Steelers go on the road to Atlanta and play the Falcons in Week 1 in a game of which the Falcons are favored by 3 points. And very simple for the Steelers to do here. Keep possession, and what I mean by that is do not turn the ball over. And they have a quarterback in Russell Wilson who does a good job at not turning the ball over. If they can make it so every drive ends in at least a punt and not a turnover, they put their defense in a really good situation to be that elite level defense that the Steelers have. Do that plus taking advantage of miscues on an Atlanta defense that has a lot of new pieces to it. The Steelers can be a really good team in this week. Atlanta has a lot of new weapons on their offense, which they can easily utilize to create big plays, and their defense can get pressure and force mistakes to the Steelers' offense. But I don't really believe they're going to do enough on the defensive front to withstand the Steelers' defense. It's going to be a defensive showdown, and I have to pick the better defense. So give me the Steelers to win this one. Another divisional class is in place as the Carolina Panthers head down to the Big Easy and play the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are favored by 4 points in this one, and that feels a lot high to me. It seems to be a lot closer than people expect. And the big thing for Carolina is to keep Bryce Young upright, keep the game simple for him, and just force turnovers and mistakes on New Orleans' side. The Panthers have a better built team this year than they did last year. They should be a better team. It's just, can they really execute more effectively this year than last year? And I believe so. For the Saints, they need to limit their mistakes and turnovers because Derek Carr is leading the way. They need to apply pressure on Bryce Young and force him to make quick decisions, as well as just establish their own ground game, which was something that they were missing last year. Again, this should be a really good divisional showdown, but in the end, I do have the Carolina Panthers walking into New Orleans and leaving with a win. The Seattle Seahawks host the Denver Broncos this week as 6-point favorites, and another point spread that kind of feels like it should be closer. I could see this game being a shootout. I could see this game being a defensive battle. This game can kind of go either way, but nonetheless, I see this being a close one. For Denver, they need to make the game simple for Bo Nix. Keep him upright. Don't have him really be too out there and confused. Obviously, he showed in the preseason he can handle somewhat, but preseason defense is not the same as a regular season defense. So keep the game simple and establish the run to help do that. For Seattle, obviously I'm going to say this, is to confuse Bo Nix. Run disguise looks. Run some kind of exotic pressure looks. Get pressure on him. Force him to make post-snap reads. And for their offense, just limit mistakes. Keep the ball in your hands. You have the weapons to move the ball effectively. Limit mistakes and target the weak points of Denver's defense. I have Seattle winning this game, but again, I feel like it's going to be a lot closer than some people think. A divisional clash in the City of Angels as the Raiders travel to LA to play the Chargers. The Chargers are favored by 3 points in this one. And man, this game felt a lot different before training camp than it does right now. For the Raiders to win, they need to be a defensive focused team, I feel. Make this game come down to either a defensive clash or just allow your offense to gain a substantial lead and then just beat up the Chargers from there. Force them behind the sticks, force them to create mistakes and turnovers, and create pressure on Herbert. Key things there for the Raiders. For the Chargers, you kind of want this to be a shootout almost. You got to keep Herbert upright. You want to establish a run. Harbaugh likes to do that. And stay ahead of the sticks and hope your receiver room is not as bad as other people feel like it is. I have the Chargers winning this game, but it's going to be an interesting one to see kind of how both of these teams handle the rosters they have. But yeah, give me the Chargers to win week 1. The Dallas Cowboys are 2.5-point underdogs traveling to Cleveland to begin the season. And that is definitely not what I was expecting when I was going over this week. But yeah, the Cowboys are underdogs. Cowboys to win. Great pressure on defense. Utilize your good defense with Trevon Diggs being back from injury, with how well Deron Bland played last year, with DeMarcus Lawrence, and with Micah Parsons. You have a solid core on defense. For the offense, you need to have improvement as a road offense. Their home offense last year was the best in the league, but their road offense did not live up to that same standard. It needs to if they're going to win this one and if they're going to have a successful season this year. For Cleveland, keep Watson upright, establish the run, and hope your defense plays even close to that historic level it played last year. Cleveland's defense was amazing last year, but can it get back to even close to that level? I'm not fully sure. I have the Cowboys winning this one, and would very well easily could be game of the week. The Washington Commanders traveled to Tampa Bay and played the Buccaneers in week 1 in a game of which Tampa is 3-point favorites. Jaden Daniels gets his first bit of action against a really good Tampa defense in a game where his mobility could very easily be what decides it. If Washington can find ways to utilize his mobility, whether it's through read options or design QB runs, or hell, even just random scrambles out of broken plays, this can help Washington a lot because it can help them keep Tampa's offense off the field, which is a really good offense and has a lot of weapons. For Tampa, you want to contain Jaden Daniels and force him to beat you through the air, which he can do. He showed it in LSU, but as an NFL defense he's going up against, so it's a different story. As well as for their offense, simply just be their offense. Trust Mayfield. You paid him on the offseason for a reason. Trust Mayfield. Trust Mike Evans. Trust Chris Godwin. Trust Rashard White. And most importantly, trust your offensive line. You are a better team in the trenches than Washington. Show it and prove it on Sunday, and I like Tampa's chances. I have Tampa winning for that exact reason. Sunday Night Football brings us a rematch of the wildcard round last year with the Rams traveling to Detroit to play the Lions. The Lions are 3.5-point favorites, and both of these teams are interesting this year. Both teams are teams I feel can surprise people this year, and especially the Rams. I feel like some people are sleeping on them just because Aaron Donald is no longer there. For the Rams to win, control time of possession, score early and often, and force mistakes from the Lions. For the Lions, you have to just utilize the fact that you're a really good team when at home and indoors. You got to win the trenches because now with Aaron Donald gone, you are the better team up front, both on the offense and defensive line. Capitalize on it, force pressure, force mistakes through that, and force LA to beat you on the ground. They have really good receivers. Force Kyron Williams to showcase that last year is truly the kind of back he is. With that being said, I have the Lions winning the first Sunday Night Football game of the season. Week 1 ends with the Jets traveling to Santa Clara to play the 49ers on Monday Night Football, and the 49ers are 3.5-point favorites. And listen, the Jets have an okay roster on paper. I'm not blown away by it like some national media is, or they need to control time of possession, which is tough to do when your pass rush is in a questionable state thanks to Hassan Reddick holding out. So you really have to depend on your secondary, which is a relatively questionable unit, mainly led by Sauce Gardner. The offensive line is a big question mark, and that goes into the fact that they need to keep Aaron Rodgers upright, and they need to establish Breece Hall in the run game. With the O-line being a question mark, those two things are really tough to do without having seen the team yet. Meanwhile, the 49ers bring back everyone, having extended Brandon Ayuk and Trent Williams finally, and they're ready to go and prove people wrong. Their job isn't that difficult in this game, mainly just force mistakes and provide pressure to Aaron Rodgers. They have two guys that can do it really effectively in Nick Bosa and Leonard Floyd. And then you have Fred Warner in the linebacking unit to really hone in and lead the defense. It is really hard for me to say that Jets are going to win this, and that's why I'm going to say the 49ers take the first Monday Night Football game of the season. Well, there you have it. Those are my predictions for the 16 games of NFL Week 1. Let me know your thoughts down below. Subscribe if you're new. Leave a like. You know the whole drill. I'll see you all next time. Have yourselves a damn good one. Peace.